Welcome to Needful Things again. So now we're going to begin to work on I'm calling it's, the front kind of looks like a serape, the back kind of looks like a poncho. So I'm going to call this a Serancho. So we begin by doing 80 chains. Just make 80 chains. And then we're going to chain 3. Then we're going to yarn over and go on 1, 2, 3, the 4th chain from the hook. And do a double crochet. In the next stitch we're going to do a double crochet. Double crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to double crochet all the way across our chains, and you should have 80 stitches when you get done. It's very important to count your stitches in this pattern. You'll have 80 double crochets when you get to the end. I'm using a 4-weight medium yarn, and my hook is a Susan Bates I or a 9. And we'll just continue doing our double crochets all the way across our 80 chains until we have our 80 stitches. And when we get back to the end, I will meet you there to show you what we're going to do next. So just continue doing your stitches. Okay, so I've done my 80 double crochets here. Now we're going to chain 3. Turn our work. And we already have this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet in that first stitch. So the very next stitch is right here. And we're going to yarn over, which we already did. Go under that and do a front post double crochet. Just like that. Then we're going to yarn over, and the next one we're going to do a back post double crochet. And we're going to do a front post double crochet in the next one. Back post double crochet. Front post double crochet, and you can pull your stitches apart if you can't see them. And a back post. Front post. Back post. Double crochet, front post double crochet, and that's what we're going to do all the way across the entire row of our 80 stitches. We're going to do front post double crochet and a back post double crochet all the way across our stitches. Okay, so the next one will be a back post, then a front post, then a back post, then a front post, and we're going to continue this all the way across the work, alternating front post, back post, and we're making our ribbing. Okay, and I'll connect with you when we get to the end of this row doing your front post and back post double crochet, but make sure that your first stitch is that chain stitch is counting as a double crochet. Okay, so just do that to the end of the row and I'll meet you when we get there. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my row of front post, back post double crochets on the ribbing. This is the ribbing. If you haven't guessed by now, we're starting at the top of this project and working our way down, which normally is not how I do a poncho or a serape, but this is a different way to do it. So now we're going to do our back post. Front post. Back post. Front post. Now we have 2 stitches left. This one is a back post. And we counted the chains in the beginning as our first double crochet. So here they are, 1, 2, 3. In the third chain, we're just going to do a double crochet in that top chain to end our row, like so. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn our work, that counts as our first double crochet. So now you just do what you see. Like the next stitch is a front post double crochet. I'm going to do a front post double crochet. The next stitch is a back post. The next one is a front post. And you'll just repeat all the way across your work. Doing your front post and back post double crochet. And you can see from the photographs in the beginning of the video that I did the one I did before was in 2 different colors. This one I'm going to do all in this one color. You can change your color rows if you want to. Each section of color is going to be like a row of double crochets, a row of open spaces, a row of double crochets, and then you would change to your next color. You'll see as we go along, I'll show you that again. So just continue down your work, doing your front post and back post double crochet. We're making our neck ribbing. This is for the neck. And my mannequin, just so you know, I think she's 5'8". You can make yours a little shorter if you want to, or you can make it longer. You just decrease how many rows you do or add more rows. It'll just be bigger. So we just continue to do our rows of ribbing. We're going to do 8 rows. And sometimes when I'm doing the ribbing, just so I don't get lost in my stitches, which I can do, I know that we're now on row number 2, right here. It's row number 2. This is row number 1. And I'll just put the stitches in so that I'll know I don't have to continuously count. I just look at my stitch markers and know I've done 2 rows. I'm on second row. And I'll do the same thing on each row, but I'll put them on the same end so I don't get confused. And also you're going to need a stitch marker too when we get, because we're going to need to put a stitch marker on the front and the middle. This is our front section. We have 80 stitches, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's right here. And we're going to put a stitch marker here, and a stitch marker in this stitch on the front for two reasons. We'll know it's the front, and we'll know this is the stitches we're going to work in when we'll be right there in the middle already. We'll have it marked so we won't have to hunt for it. So if you have 20 of these front posts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And we should have 20 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's the middle. We'll just put those there for now. We'll count from the end. Like that. We'll just leave it there. Just leave that there for now, and you don't have to worry about what that is. It's just easier to mark it now. And we'll continue just doing our ribbing stitches. Front and back post double crochets. So we're just going to continue working our ribbing. Here's what it's looking like. Makes a nice collar. There's the back, looks the same. So continue to do that across your row, front and back post double crochets. So you continue that and finish your ribbing. You're going to do 7 rows of that for our neck. And when you get back to there, I'll see you when you get your 7 rows. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of my 3rd row. And I just want to show you again what I do with the stitch markers. I've got my front post double crochet here. One more back post. Don't forget that. You got to pull that apart at the end because it gets real tugged in there. But your last stitch will be that chain space right there. So in the top of that chain, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do my last double crochet. Chain 3. Turn my work. Then I'm going to take my other stitch marker and put right in the row that I just finished. So that I know I've got 3 rows there and I've got 4 more to do. So I've got my chain 3. I'll go into the next stitch, which is the front post double crochet. Back post. Front post. Back post. Front post. Back post. Front post. And so on and so forth all the way across your row. And here's what mine's looking like. So you can see yours should be doing the same. So just continue until we have our 7 rows, and then we will do our next part. Okay? Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my collar. I guess we can call it the collar piece. My ribbing. So we're just going to get that to the end. That little stitch likes to hide in there, so don't forget that it's down there. It's a back post double crochet. And then the last one, and the third chain. Okay, so now we're to the end of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this would be my 7th. And the collar is done. So now what we're going to do is we're at the end of this last row. We're going to chain 90 chains out this way. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is take these off, because I don't need them anymore. Okay, so in my last stitch here that I just did, I'm going to put a stitch marker because I know this is the beginning stitch of the collar. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to also put one here. And this, there's a chain 3 on the other end, so you'll just put it into the top chain. That counts as your double crochet, because that will be your first stitch, and this other one is stitch number 80. Because it's very important now to have the perfect count in this row. If you don't, your whole thing is going to be thrown off. Your pattern will not work out. So we have to have 80 stitches in the collar, and now we're going to chain 90 stitches, just 90 chains. That's all we're going to do right now, 90 chains, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 40, 60, 70, 80, 89, and 90. Now I want you to take another stitch marker and put in that 90th chain. And don't pull that chain tight. We're going to cut our yarn. And just sort of, don't pull it really tight because you don't want to tighten up that 90th chain, okay? That's all we're going to do. So then we just have this attached to our collar. Now we're going to go in here to the other side, and we're going to, where we have our stitch marker, that's our first stitch, but it's also where we're going to attach our yarn. Again, we're going to reattach our yarn. And the way we're going to do that is with a slip knot. Put it on your hook. Hold that tail. Pull it through. Now here we are. Chain 1, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And we do not pull this tight because you have to count that first stitch. So we're going to take another stitch marker and put in that first stitch so we don't lose it. Because this could come out of there. If you're not careful, don't pull that really tight. Just leave that tail there. Because when we come back across with our stitch, we're just going to stitch this tail right on in here. And if you feel like you might lose it, just wrap it around there and put it right there for a second. You can do that. But you have to, wrap your yarn around it. I don't need to do that, but you might want to do that to feel more secure about it. Okay, so on this chain, we're going to do 90 stitches, just like on the other side. We just did 10. Now finish it up. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 60, 80, 90. Now we've got 90 stitches here, just like we had on the other side. Do not pull that stitch tight because it's very important that you keep your stitch count on this row particularly. There are 260 stitches that are going to be all the way across this row that start here. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain one more, and then that very first stitch we're going to do single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're doing single crochets all the way across this entire 260 stitches. That's including the 2 chain sections we just made, and all the way across here is 80 stitches, and then 90 on the other end. That's 260, and it is very, very important. I cannot stress this enough. You have to count these stitches. You have to. So we've done 10, and you'll do it all the way. Make sure you go into that 90th stitch. Do not pull this really tight while you're working in there, and keep your stitch markers in both of those stitches, because you want to make sure that you put your first single crochet when you get to the actual collar piece goes in the very first stitch. So keep your stitch marker until you get there, and then just we'll crochet this into it. And when I get down to that part, I will come back and show you how to do that. So do your single crochets, counting 90 stitches to your stitch marker. Very important. Okay, so I've gotten to my stitch number 90 on my single crochets. We're working on the back side of our work now, just so you know. So I took out my stitch marker in my 90th stitch, which was this one right here. And I just did my single crochet in there. There's the tail from that. I'm going to keep, that's my stitch marker for my first stitch of my collar. So I've done 90 stitches. If you have one, if you don't, you can use a pencil and paper, but if you have a stitch counter, you can just count your stitches that way. And you can take that stitch marker out now, but still keep the one in there for your first stitch of your collar piece, because you need to make sure that you have your correct stitches. And in the collar section, there'll be 80 stitches here, from stitch marker to stitch marker. So I've got my stitch count, that's 90. And what I'm going to do with this, the marker that I took off from there, I'm just going to flip it over to the front for a second and just put that in the front, so that I will always know that that's my front side without having to check, just to help me later. So okay, we're going to do our first single crochet in here. There's the stitch right there where our marker is. I'm just going to leave it in there because there's already a stitch in there from what we did, but it's also the same stitch this one goes in. So there's our single crochet number 1 right there. You can take that out now. And then you just make sure you have your 80 stitches all the way across doing your single crochets. Got one there. 2, 3, 4, and I'm just pulling that tail in with it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you just keep going across. I'm going to cut that little piece of tail that's sticking off out. Most of it's tucked away inside now, you see. And so we just keep going across, and we'll do 80 stitches here. Okay, we'll do 80 stitches in this section here. And there again, on the other end, we have our stitch marker. That's our 80th stitch, and if you need to mark that other stitch, the beginning of the 90 stitches in the chain, this is your 80th stitch here, so this would be your first stitch of the 90s. You can put a stitch marker, also in there. This is your 80th stitch marker, and this is number 1 of your 90 stitches on this chain, because you need to count all these stitches. So continue doing your 80 stitches across here with your single crochets. I've done 10. 30, and that's what it's looking like. So finish that across, and I'll meet you when we get to those last two, the last stitch of this and the beginning of the chain stitches, so you don't get confused, okay? So let's complete that. Okay, I'm at 77. 78. 79, and there's my 80th stitch with my stitch marker. That's 80. And I just leave it in there for now. Okay, that's 80. And now we start, and see, normally it would have been there in that stitch, but now we just start in our first chain, and there'll be 90 single crochets on our chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10, so just keep going down your 90 chains. Make sure you're counting, okay? I like to give my, stretch my stitches out a little bit so they don't get all pulled up. Okay. And just continue, and I'll meet you at the end, and we'll go from there when we get to the other end. And stitch number 90 goes right in here. Take out my stitch marker. Okay, So now we're at the end of that row. We've done 260 single crochets across the row. Like so. Okay. Now we're going to chain one, turn your work. So we'll be on the front side of our work now, which is why we're going to keep this here so we'll know that we're on the front side of our work and we don't have to look every time. These are our two middle stitches at 40. We're not there yet. And we won't do anything here, it's just marking them. We'll be doing something down here. Okay, so we've chained one and turned our work. And we're going to do 260 single crochets all the way across the row you just did. This is very easy. You can count it if you need to, but you're going to just repeat what you just did, 260 stitches, except this time it's a lot easier for you because you've already done the foundation row of single crochets. Okay, so we're just going to single crochet all the way across this row, like this. And we're on the front side of our work. And you do need to keep count of your rows, not so much stitches. I do count the stitches occasionally because you don't want to get off, especially if you're on a space row where you have the spaces and you're like, uh-oh, well, you've messed up somewhere. So just continue doing this and you'll get, you'll come to your, where you cut it together. You don't have to worry about this anymore. So we can take those out, those stitch markers, because you'll just go right on across the row. 260 single crochets. I do use my stitch counter starting here because after this is really we're on row number 2 now. You do need to count the rows. We're on row number 2. You can just write it down with a pencil if you want to, so just continue your single crochets across your row. It'll take you a little while to get across there. And then when you get to the end of this single crochet row, I want you to chain 3 and turn your work. Okay? The end of this row, you'll chain 3 and turn your work. So I'll see you at the end of this row. Okay? Okay, so I'm at the end of my second row of single crochet. And I know I told you to chain 3, and I meant to tell you, you have to chain 4 when you get to the end of this row. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Turn your work. Okay, so now we're working on the back side of our work. We know that because we put that stitch marker there. Okay. Straighten out my work. It's getting all curled up in itself. Okay, so we've chained 4. Here's what we're going to do on the third row. We've got, normally we do 3 stitches here for a double crochet, 3 chains and count it as a double crochet. We've done 4 because we need a double crochet and a chain. So that's what the 4 stitches gives us, because we're going to yarn over. That's in our first stitch there. This would be our second stitch. We're going into the 3rd stitch and do a double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1, skip a stitch in the next one, do a double crochet. Here's what we're doing. Now do you see why we did the extra chain there? It gives us the same little square that we get all the way across. So do this all the way until we get to our middle section where we have our 2 markers, which I have now moved down to the 2 middle stitches. They should be from your first stitch on your ribbing section, your first stitch to 40 will be here, and the same thing from that side from 40, and that's the middle, 40 and 40 of our 80. And we're going to do something different there. So continue on with your chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet in the next one. We're going to continue with this. All the way till we get to the middle section. So I've chained 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next one. Do this all the way to the middle of the row. And this is a garment that, like, it basically fits all sizes. And even men or women or anybody in between can wear it, because there's no gender to my clothing garments, I guess. And the good thing is you don't have to put it over your head. But yet you get the same effects of a poncho or a wrap or something. It's really good to cuddle up in the wintertime and watch TV. Oh, I hear those birds outside. I just can't control the migratory pattern of birds, you know. I wish I could. Oh, they stopped. This is basically what we're going to do across this entire row, except for that middle section. So just continue until you get to the middle section with this pattern here, this sequence in our pattern. And this is what you'll have. I'm going to chain 1, skip a stitch into the next stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next stitch, do a double crochet, I'll just do a couple more here. Okay, so continue on your work until you get to the middle stitches, and then I'll come back to show you what we're going to do there, okay? Okay, so I've come to the middle stitches where I want to show you what we're going to do here to set up the rest of our pattern. So here's my 2 stitches in the middle. So here's I did my double, my chain stitch, and then my last double, so I'm now up to the middle stitch. So I'm going to do a chain as if going to the next stitch, but I'm not skipping any stitches here. So we did the double, chain one, and then in our first of the two stitches we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1, 2, like that, 2 chains, 1, 2, and then in the next one where we have our other marker, whoops, we're going to do 2 double crochets in that stitch. And then we're going to do a chain, because you have to repeat what you did on the other side. Okay, like that. And then we're going to go right into the next stitch with a double crochet. So you see what we've done here? So we came up on our last stitch. Before that stitch, we did our chain. Then in the stitch, the center stitch, we did 2 double crochets, 2 chains. Then in the next center stitch, we did 2 double crochets and we did a chain because we did a chain here. And then right into the stitch beside that, there's a double crochet. So we do the same thing here. And then we just go right back into our pattern, which is a chain, skip a stitch, and go into the next stitch, double crochet. Chain, skip a stitch, go into the next stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, go into the next one, double crochet, and we're just repeating our pattern till we get to the end. And we're doing a little increase sort of in the middle there, because our next row we will work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets in this chain space here. So this was our middle stitch, so I'm just going to move this to the middle stitch now. We know that's our true middle now for this pattern. Right there, you see? That's what you should have. And you'll just keep working your pattern all the way to the end of this row. And when you get to the end of this row, you will chain 3. And turn your work, okay? So we'll just keep working our pattern, chain 1, skip 1, go into the next one, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, go into the next one, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, go into the next one, double crochet, all the way to the end of the row. And make sure you're doing that chain in between, because sometimes I forget it and I have to pull out an entire row or two, because I can't have one stitch off. It makes me insane. Okay, so we'll just continue across our row. Like so. We're working on the back side of our work now. So I'll meet you when we get to the end of the row and chain 3. Okay? Okay, so now we're at the end of that row. I've got to do my chain, skip 1, and then my final double crochet in the very last stitch. And this is what we've done. So now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn our work. And this row is going to be where our decreases start. And we will never be decreasing on these rows here, which I will refer to probably as the space rows, because they have the spaces in between the double crochets. So we will never do decreases on that row. We will only do our decreases on our double crochet row. This is our first row of double crochet. It's row number 4. So we already have our first single crochet there. Single crochet, sorry. Chain 3. So that's in our first stitch. So remember, we skipped a stitch here. So in our double crochet row, we have to make up for that stitch. So right in that space, you're just going to do a double crochet, okay? Just like that. Then we're going to go into our next stitch, which is the top of this double crochet, and do a double crochet into the space. Oh, but I forgot. In the next 2 stitches, sorry about that. I get so carried away sometimes. So we do that, and what we're going to do here, I forgot we're decreasing on this row, sorry about that. So what we're going to do is we have our 3 chains. So this would be a stitch because that was the stitch we skipped. This is the double crochet, so that's 1 stitch, 2 stitch. We're going to decrease there and put those 2 stitches together. So yarn over, pull up a loop through the space, pull up a loop through the double crochet, go through 3, go through 2. That's how we're going to do the decrease, okay? And that just pulls them together. So we still have our stitch here, but we've gotten rid of 1 stitch there. And we're going to do the same thing on the other end. So now what we do is we just go through it in the space, double crochet in the top of the double crochet, all the way across your row like that, double crochet on top of the double crochet in the space, double crochet in the top of the double crochet in the space, double crochet in the top of the double crochet previously, double crochet in the space, and that's what we'll do all the way across, and this is what we're doing. And on the other end, we'll do the same decrease with the we will never use the first stitch as a decrease stitch because it's often a chain, and that's just not very nice. So it'll always be the second 2 stitches when you get to the other end. When you get to the last 3 stitches, the first stitch will not be in the decrease, it'll be the next 2. So I'll show you that when we get there. It'll be the same way, just opposite. I'm sure you know that, but some people might not. So just continue doing your double crochets all the way across your row in the top of each of the previous double crochets, 1 in each space. And I'll meet you when we get to the middle and show you what we're going to do there, because it's not the same as the last row. Okay, so just continue this until we get to the middle section where we did our increase before. So you have to be really good at increasing and decreasing. And if you have another way you like to decrease, go for it. But I just like the way this one works with this pattern. So that's how we're doing our decreases. So I'll meet you when we get to the middle section here and show you what we're going to do in there. Okay, so just continue following your pattern to the middle section. Okay, so we're coming to the middle section where we're going to do our increases in the middle, because we're decreasing on the ends and increasing in the middle. So whatever pattern you're working in of your sequence, like here we're on the double crochets, so, and here's our middle section. So we'll just continue. One in the space. Now remember, here's our last double crochet from the previous row. Remember we did the chain before we went to those two spaces where we did the two doubles together, right here. So there's a space right here. Make sure you put a double crochet there. And then because we're increasing in this area, there's two new double crochets here that we just put in the previous row. We'll do that there. Work two double crochets. And now we're to the chain space that we created from the previous row. So I'll take out my stitch marker. And in that space, we're going to do two double crochets, two chains, two double crochets, like that. And because we ended here with our two double crochets that we did, we're going to do the same thing there. So we'll put two double crochets here in those two new stitches. Like that. So it's the same. So you have the two that we just put in there. Then you'll have the two on the side of it. And then we'll just continue in our pattern. Double crochet in the chain space here. Double crochet on top of the previous double crochet. Double crochet in this chain open space. Either the chain space, you can call it, or the open space. And so you'll just continue your double crochets all the way to the end of this row. I'm going to put my stitch marker back in here. And we'll just keep going, and I'll see you when we get to the next one. When we get to the end of this row, I'll check back in with you. So continue your double crochets after we did our increase here in the middle. And it'll be the same when we do the row again of the open spaces. We'll be working in the pattern, whatever it is, when we get to the middle space, and we'll just continue as if in that pattern, minus the two that we add into the middle. So I'll see you back there when you get this row done. At the end of this row, you can chain 3 and turn your work. And also, the two single crochet rows we did in the beginning, just to point this out, I did that for structure, but I also did 2 because mathematically it lined up where I needed to, and it's the same height as our double crochet rows. So what will happen is, like, we'll do another row, double crochet, then we'll do the chain space and then double crochet, and this will be our section of our pattern. Okay, so finish that row, and I'll see you right back at the end of that row. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my double crochet row. I believe we're on row number 4 now. Finishing up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now don't forget we have to do a decrease on the end of this row. Just as we did in the beginning, it'll just be opposite where we place the stitches. And this is also the row that you would do your color change on the last stitch. if you were going to do like two different colors like I did in the one that you see in the beginning and the end of the video. Okay, so now we're down to the last couple of stitches here. So here we are. Essentially, because you know we put a stitch inside each square, so we have to put a stitch in that square. So we have a stitch here, our last double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, go into that, pull up a loop. Then we're going to pull up a loop where we would normally put a double crochet in that space, chain space. And that's how we're going to do that decrease. Okay? Let me take it out and do it again. It's opposite of what we did on the other end. So we're going to pull up a loop through the double crochet, pull up a loop through the chain space, pull through 3, pull through 2. That's our decrease. 1, 2, 3, double crochet in the third chain to end our row, like so. Okay, and so this alone is our pattern that we'll be following. This won't be 2 single crochets, it'll be a row of double crochets, and then that will complete our pattern follow, repeat, I guess you call it. So it'll be double crochet row, open space row, double crochet row. Then you'll do the double crochet row again, so you will have 2 double crochet rows side by side, because you're starting the next row in the pattern, which is double crochet, open row, and double crochet. Okay, so what we're going to, now if you were going to change your color here, you would just, let me see what I have I can grab to show you. Okay, so we wanted to change this color here. We would have done it, of course, in our, before we finished our double crochet on the last row where we have the 2, we're in that double crochet. We're going to finish it with our new color. Just put it on the hook, pull it through, and there you go. And then you'll tie that off, secure that. But I'm not doing that because I'm not switching colors on this one. I'm going to be using the same color. Okay, I just wanted you to know that. See how it works. So now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn our work because we're going to be doing another double crochet row. So we have the chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, so that's that stitch. So we'll move into the second stitch, then we'll go into the third stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 3, pull through 2. We've just done our decrease because every row, every double crochet row until I tell you not to, is going to be a decrease row. So that one, the previous one we decreased, this one we're decreasing, but we're never going to use the last stitch because it just doesn't look pretty if you do that. So it'll always be the second 2 stitches that we decrease. So we'll work all the way across to the middle. And we're doing double crochet, so we'll work right up to here, right up to this point here. Right up to this point, we'll do our last double crochet there. There's our space where we'll do 2 double crochets, 2 chains, 2 double crochets, and then keep in our pattern going down. And that's what we're going to do all the way across to the end, where we'll do another decrease on the other end. Okay, so I'll meet you when we get to the middle. Okay, so I'm to the middle section again where we're going to do that point increase. I just want to show you one more time. Take out my stitch marker. So we're on the double crochet row still. You've got those double crochets and you'll just follow your pattern. There's our last double crochet. Now we're up to the space. We'll do 2 double crochets, 2 chains, 2 double crochets, and we'll just continue down the other side exactly the same way in our double crochets. Like that. There's our space. Put my marker back in the middle. Okay, so we'll finish this row down to the end, and don't forget that this is a double crochet row, so you have to do an increase. And your increase, there's our chain space. So, I mean a decrease, I'm sorry. We'll do a decrease in the last 2 stitches, which will be this one here and in the space. And then you'll do your last double crochet in the 3rd chain of this chain stitch here. Okay. And then we'll be back on the chain space row. So at the end of this row, you will chain 4. Okay. So this is row 5 that we're on now. Because we have 2 single crochet rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on row number 5. So complete row number 5, and I'll see you back for row number 6. Okay, I'm down to the end of this row of double crochets where I'm doing my decrease. Take my stitch marker out. So we're going to go into the last double crochet, pull up a stitch, go into the space, pull up a stitch, pull through 3, pull through 2, there's your decrease. Now we're going to do 1, 2, 3 in that top chain of the 3 chains, our last double crochet of this row. Okay, so we've done a decrease. Now we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn your work. And we've already done our, that counts as our double crochet, so that's in our first stitch. Skip the second. Go into the 3rd stitch. We do no decreases on the rows with the spaces are not decrease rows. Chain 1, skip a space, double crochet. Chain 1, skip a space, double crochet. So we've done this row before. And just continue till you get to the space in the middle where we're going to do the increase in the V section. Okay. And this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on row 6 now. Okay, so continue till you get to the middle space. Because I want to show you that that increase again that we're going to do in the middle there on this row. Oops. Okay, so continue to do that and I'll meet you when you get to the middle. Okay, so now I'm to the middle of our section where I'm going to take out my stitch marker. I finished that square. I'm going to do my chain 1. We have a stitch there, so we skip that stitch. We have 1 stitch left. Put our double crochet there. Now we're not going to do a chain here. We're just going to go right into the chain space and do our 2 double crochets. Chain 2, 2 double crochets, and since we ended that space with this double crochet right there, we have to put one right here on this side so it's the same. See? So it looks like we added 3, but in reality we only added 2 because that's just the closer of our square. Excuse me. And now we chain 1 and continue in our pattern. Skipping 1, going into the next, chain 1, skipping 1, going into the next, so on and so forth to the end of the row. Let me put my stitch marker back in here. I just like to know where I'm at. This is to let me know that this is the front side of our work. Okay, so just continue doing your little square spaces all the way to the end. And when you get to the end of this row, you will chain 3 and turn your work. Okay? Okay, so we finished row 6 and we've started row 7. We did our chain 3, turned our work, we did our decrease on the 2nd and 3rd stitch, and now we're just going to continue to do our double crochets across the row, doing our increases in the middle. And our decreases on each end. Remember to decrease on each end by 1 stitch, which will change later, but right now it stays that way. Only on the double crochet rows though will we be doing decreases on the ends. So just continue doing that across and you see it's taking its shape. And just continue across on row number 7. And don't forget to decrease on the other end. And then that will complete this repeat of the pattern because we have double crochet, open stitch, double crochet at the end of row 7. If you're changing color, you'll change color on the next row. I'm not, so we'll be doing another row of double crochets. So do this row of double crochets. This is row number 7. Okay. Okay, so we've done up to our row 7. And I've done row number 8, which you're going to do row number 8. So just chain, do your 3 chains, turn your work, and do row number 8 is just double crochet. And of course your 2 doubles and 2 chains in the middle. And from row number 8 all the way to row number 45, we're just going to do double crochets. And what you have to do is on the end, of course, you know, your 2 last stitches are decreases. And you do the same thing on your other end, decreasing by 2 each time, you know, 1 on each end, 2 on each row. So I'm going to chain 3, turn my work, and that's my first one. So my second and third is going to be a decrease and just double crochet all the way across. And this is a basic pattern for this design that I've done here with the Serancho, I'm calling it, the Serape Poncho combination. And if you want yours to, this is the front actually, so it's going to go up at a little bitty angle, not a big angle, but a little angle. If you don't want an angle in the front, just don't do the decreases and it'll just be straight across at the bottom. Also, you can continue in this same pattern if you want to do the whole pattern with the eyelets or the holes in it. Or you can do another stitch, but it is a basic pattern that you can use different stitches with. So you'll get a lot of use out of it. So I'm going to continue with my double crochets. I'm on row number 9. It's also a very quick pattern to work, so you can make this garment pretty quickly. You can use any kind of yarns you want to use. If you wanted to, you could adapt the pattern if you wanted to use a bigger hook, a larger hook, or if you had chunkier yarn, you would just adapt it to that. But it's a very basic pattern that you can use your own creativity and change the stitches. Or you can do the same thing I'm doing, or as I said, you can continue doing your eyelet stitches for the next until you reach row 45. And when you get to row 45, I'll show you how we're going to finish it off, okay, for our top-down Serancho. So continue doing your rows, and when you get to row 45, I'll meet you at the end of row 45, okay? Have fun! So I'm working on my 45 rows. I'm doing 45 rows. Because I'm doing the double crochet pattern, I am decreasing on every row, the beginning and the end of each row. I may have told you earlier, if you decided to continue with this pattern here in your garment, then you will decrease only on the double crochet rows and not the space rows. But I'm decreasing every row because I'm just doing the double crochets. So this is where I am on my work. Oh, there's my point. Keep a stitch marker in the middle. This is the back side of my work. This is the front side. So I'm going to continue doing my rows until I have 45 rows and then move on to the next part. So keep on going. So I'm on my 45th row of my double crochets in our Serancho. And I'm working on my last row. If you went for the other design pattern and did the eyelets, I hope you remember that you only decrease on that one on the double crochet rows, and it will come out a little bit larger. And on the double crochet, if you decided to do the double crochet like I'm doing, and just start with the couple of rows of the eyelets, then you'll decrease 1 stitch on each end of the row on every single row. Okay. Oh, forgot to turn my light on. Sorry about that. That must be better. So I'm going to continue on my last row of my double crochets. And I'll do my decrease right before I get to the end of the row. I don't like to do it right in that end stitch ever because I just don't like the way it looks. So you can decrease the same as I do, or if you do it another way, that's fine too. As long as you do your decrease on the beginning and the end of each row if you're doing the double crochet pattern. And like I said, you know, with this design you can choose any stitch pattern you like as long as you keep it within your 260 starting stitches. Then you should be fine. Just make sure it works out correctly. So we'll continue doing the last row of our double crochets, and I will check back in with you when I get ready to do my last decrease and tell you what we're going to do next. Okay? Okay, so I'm at the end of my row, my 45th row, and I'm coming near the end, so I'm going to do my decrease. I'm just going to do it right here. And then continue to the end of my row. Got 2 more stitches. And don't forget those chain stitches on the end. They're stitches. You got to do your last stitch in there and the 3rd stitch. 3rd chain. That's another thing too. If you're doing the eyelet rows, make sure you count those eyelet rows because that's where you'll lose your stitches if you're going to. And so now all we're going to do at this point is just cut our yarn and secure it. And you can take care of that later. So now we have finished the body of our piece. And so what we have now, we have the 2 fronts. This is the front sections. There's 2 sides to the front, and as you know, I did the decrease. So that means on if you did the decreases, you'll have something like this. And it's an angle because we did the decreases from the top to the bottom. And so these are your front panels. These will be your front panels. And so we're going to reconnect our yarn on the right side of the front panels. Just connect it right into that 3rd chain. I'm just going to do it with a little slip knot here so that I make sure it's good and tight in there. I'm going to pull that chain through and do a chain 1 and then go right back through that same one and do a single crochet. Okay? There's the tail. So we're just going to crochet the tail in with it. So we have a double crochet row. In each double crochet row, I'm just going to put a single crochet. And I'm catching that in the double crochet row. I'm doing 2 single crochets in each row. So sort of try to spread it out through that, you know, the double crochet there like that. Just pull up a single, go back through the same double crochet row, pull up a single. That way you'll do 2 in each row, and it'll just give you a good foundation there. And we're going to do single crochets all the way to the end there. And then we're going to do a reverse crochet back to this side, okay, which we have done many times before. So we're in our next double crochet, we'll get a single, 2 singles. Next double crochet space, we'll get 2 singles. You can space them in there however you feel comfortable doing it, as long as you get them in there, because we don't want to stretch our piece. We just want to make sure it doesn't pull together like this either. So if we do 2 singles in that big space there, because we have that space from the double crochet there, so there's plenty of room for 2 singles in there, and that'll give us our nice edge for our reverse crochet. So we're going to just do this to the end of this row, and then we're going to reverse crochet back down to the beginning. So just do your single crochets, and I'll meet back up with you when we get to the end of that, okay? Okay, so I've come to the end of the single crochet row, and this is what we have, and it gives it a nice edge for our reverse crochet. You see? I'll just trim that. Okay, so that's my last single crochet. As you know, we're going to do a chain. You also know I like to work in that very first evil stitch. So go in there and just do whatever it takes to get that yarn through there. To complete that first reverse crochet, you'll be happy you learned that. Go into the next stitch and continue with your reverse crochet. Go into that stitch, pull that loop through, give it that little twisty thing. As you know, you have to keep your tension a little bit looser than you normally would when you're doing the reverse crochet, or you'll just end up with, honestly, a very ugly stitch. And it really is a beautiful stitch if you do it correctly. And sometimes it might take a little practice, but you should be used to it if you've done any of my patterns, because I use it quite often. I used to really hate it, but that's because I pulled it too tight and I thought it was ugly. So just continue doing your reverse crochet down to the other end, and when we get that done, I'll show you what we're going to do next. Okay, so we'll continue doing that, and we'll go all the way back to this end here, and then we'll go from there. Don't chain one when you get down here either. Okay. Okay, I'm coming up to the end of my reverse crochet row. They grow a lot quickly. They go a lot quicker than you think. I'm on my last stitch there. Don't miss that last stitch. And as you've probably been taught to do a chain here, I do not teach you to do that. You can if you like. Remember you had a stitch in the very beginning, so you got to find that stitch. There it is. Make sure you get the first one. Pull your loop up, do your single crochet, and just grab that back loop that's left over from the previous stitch and do those single crochets. This is the magic row, I like to call it, because not only is it the end of your project, but the reason I think it's the magic row is because it's the one that pushes that reverse crochet forward, and it's such a beautiful finish to our front panel. And you'll do the same thing on the other panel of the front. You'll attach your yarn to the right side and do your single crochets all the way across that panel, then do your reverse crochet, and then finish with this last row of single crochets, and your piece will be complete. After you make sure you sew in all your yarn that's hanging out everywhere and secure your ends with your darning needle, and you can run them through the fabric and just do a little zigzaggy section, and that should hold them in quite nicely. And you'll have a beautiful Serancho. Isn't that exciting? And you can use this pattern, like I said, you could make it larger, you could make it smaller. You could change the stitch patterns that you use, which is why I've done it 2 different ways. And as you'll see in the video shots, I have the green and white one that's made with the eyelet pattern. You really have to be careful with those stitches because you can lose your count very easily with the eyelet pattern, so be aware of that. So if you're more of a beginner type person, this is very beginner friendly. It's just double crochet if you choose to do the double crochet pattern. And as we did do the eyelet row in the beginning, a couple of them, so you could see how it was done. Maybe you did complete that one, and that one's beautiful too. Or as well, I should say. So I'm just going to continue doing the single crochet to finish off the front panel. and I'll meet you when I get to the end of that row. Okay, I'm on my last stitch. Make sure you find that last stitch there. A single crochet. Just cut our yarn. Secure it. I don't have my darning needle at hand, but I would just pop it in here. Just like so. And here's our beautiful front panel, all complete. With our nice beautiful edging there. Isn't that gorgeous? Beautiful way to finish off the panel. And it comes to the little point here, because we did the beginning rows with the eyelets. That'll be on both sides of the front. Okay, so now do your other side. The same as you did that. And you'll have a beautiful garment all finished and ready to wear. And the back, of course, because it's the poncho part. Sorry about that. It comes down to a point in the back, as you see on the mannequin. Okay? It's very large, so I can't show you the whole thing at once on the table. I'm just knocking everything down, trying to show you this. So there's the two front sections here. This is the front here. And so if you come down to where the collar is, this will be the collar that fits like that, and you'll just wrap it over you. And it'll wrap together and come together in the front like that, the neck. And then the pretty eyelet parts come down both sides of the front. And then of course we have two sides of the front that go angle up towards the hips and pointed in the back. And I'll do a video of them both on the mannequin. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this Serancho.